I got an email from someone named Andy, and he had some good questions. So I was going to run outside and film this along my fence, and then I realized my answers would just be words out there, but if I was to search the internet for him, I could actually provide him some valuable links. So he says he's in South Carolina, so I went to Home Depot in Columbia. I don't know if that's anywhere close to where he is, but it's at least in his state. And I guess they don't get pressure treated hem fir or pressure treated Doug fir like we have here in Washington State. So, but I'm going to bet that his pressure treated is actually pressure treated all the way through the wood because it's actually pressure treated. And ours up here seems to just be soaked because they do this siping cuts into the face on all four sides to help get the chemical treatment deeper into the wood. But when you cut that wood in half or just cut the end off, you'll see that the actual heart of the post is not pressure treated. So we always have to carry this treatment can like Jasco. I can't even remember the brand, but copper chloride or something like that. And we paint every cut end we paint so that it soaks in. But here's some of his questions. He wants to know where I get my 6x6 and 4x6 posts. I would recommend Carl's Building Supply in Port Townsend. But then to get them shipped to South Carolina is going to probably be, I'm just going to guess, 10 times more in shipping than would be worth it for you. So once I'm done reading your questions, I'm going to go through all these tabs I have up here. And here, let's just make it easier to read. All these tabs right here. And then you'll have to make some decisions, I guess. So first thing is, where did I get my 4x4 and my 6x6 and my 4x6 posts? I got those at Kingston Lumber, which is just down the road from me. I could have got them at Home Depot even farther because they have the same lumber. But it seems like the quality at Home Depot gets picked through too much and not restacked. So a lot of them had a twist already in them. And I was able to get lumber from Kingston Lumber that those guys always restack it. And depending on what it is, sometimes they'll keep it inside of a building, but mostly it's just covered. Are the individual sections just sitting in the Simpson joist hangers, or are they also fastened to the joist hangers? They're sitting in the. First of all, I cut them to be really tight, so I had to work them into in between the posts. I made the posts less than 8 feet on center by just a little bit because I wanted to use 8-foot material and I wanted to be able to cut off any bad ends in case there were any. But as it happened, I was buying clear cedar, which came out perfect, but each one of those was $40 for each 2x4. And so I could have probably spaced them wider. But the key success to this whole thing was my landscape contractor had a guy who set all my posts for me. While I was building the panels, he was setting the posts, and he did it all by himself. Not only is it flawlessly straight, but I dug the holes with one of those rentals. I think I rented it from Home Depot. It had a trailer auger where you just roll the trailer around, line it up, and then it's so much easier than one of those two-man standing augers. And if you have a Bobcat, you can get that attachment and dig your holes too. And so I I really closely figured out where the center of each post was going to be, and then I set like it was about 3 inches bigger all the way around when you measure a 6x6 diagonally from longest point to longest point, so that I had plenty of room in there. And the only thing I discovered that was weird was when I go down, I went all the way down 3 feet. I took 8 foot posts and I stuck them 3 feet in the ground because I didn't want them going anywhere. And the guy who set them, he mixed the concrete in a wheelbarrow each spot and put it in there in each hole. And they were they were within a 16th of an inch, no joke, from inside post to inside post along the front part. It was absolutely perfect. And then where it changes angles, I just went with bigger posts so I'd have more to attach the panels to. But yeah, he did a phenomenal job. But I'm getting distracted here. So they're set in the joist hangers, but then they're also attached. And the dilemma I had was, do I want to use those little we used to call them Tico nails, but all the inspectors get all wiggy about that. The little 1.25 inch structural nails that come from Simpson, and it was a toss up between that or the structural screws because the screws were easier to get in, just because hammering those nails so close to I mean, it's just a tight spot to be hammering. And so I ended up going with the screws, the little hex head 1.25 inch structural screws from Simpson. They're SDS or whatever they're branded as. And I didn't fill every single hole because I didn't want to split the wood that's there. Because that's the only hang up I have with anything from Simpson. When they have 6 holes and you're screwing into a 2x4 bottom cord of a truss, you shred that. You just shred it. It's useless. So if a high wind comes along, it's just going to shatter right there because you've got too many pieces of metal splitting the wood right there. But also, once I set them in there and then I line them up at the top, I also used 3-inch and 3.5-inch stainless steel deck screws. And you got to be careful with stainless steel because if you use an impact or impact driver, stainless steel is more brittle than a standard structural screw or even a deck screw. So I would pilot hole, and I've got one of those drill bits that has the countersink head built on it. And so you don't see them from far away, but if you get up there close, you'll see nice clean silver heads in the actual wood, mostly on my side and the top side. So from the street, you can't see any connectors. And I chose stainless steel because I don't want the tannins from the cedar to mess with it, and I don't want any kind of rust running down my fence. So, little extra expense, not that bad, but stainless steel was the choice. And I probably put three or four. So like if you were a running back and you hit my fence, you could take one of the panels loose. But just standing there, they ain't going anywhere. And part of that is if a panel does get damaged, I just pull out those six or eight screws, and then I can lift the whole panel out of the saddles or the Simpson hangers, and we're good to go. I can build a new one, replace it, no biggie. The tops, yeah, that's how the tops are attached. They're centered in the post so that they have the same reveal on both sides. And that's one of the reasons I didn't go with 4x4s. Well, there's several reasons, but one was as a framer doing trim work, it was always a pain if I had to bring something that was 3.5 and center it on something that was 3.5 and make it look right, because over time one of them's going to shrink different than the other, or there's just not a clean way to attach a post to like a 2x4 and make it look right. So I decided to go with a bigger post, and then I would have a 5.5-inch surface to align a 3.5-inch object. And that way, if I'm off a little bit, or if I'm putting the screw in and the board, tweaks to one side by 1/8 or something, it's no big deal. It still looks awesome. And I screwed the tops with stainless steel screws. I used I actually asked my landscape contractor to get black 12-foot gates, and it took a long time. He came out with some gray ones that he had, and we kept the gray ones for a while just to keep the place buttoned up for the dog. And then finally, he was able to track down black ones, and then he took the gray ones and used them on his farm, and I was able to have black. And it says here, yeah. So that's part of the interesting part of what happened on my design. First of all, yeah, you put the gate and the hardware all up there on the ground, and you figure out exactly the distance apart you need, and then you dig your holes, and then you set your posts, and then you check again and make sure that you can move them in or out a few so that you get it just where you want it. And so mine are 12 feet apart because I like to have some room when I'm backing up, just to keep me from hitting the posts. And there is no sagging on this gate. The hardware that's attached to the post, I'll show you that in a minute, is it's from Tractor Supply, and it's designed that as the gate comes closed, it rides up on a metal plate, and so it holds the swinging end, the open end. It holds it so that if gravity was pulling down on the gate to torque it, it can't because it's sitting there. And then the other end's held by the two hinges that are lagged into the post. And on those two posts, I think those are 8x8. I can't remember, but I think I got bigger ones for that because I was concerned about the gate. You know, way over engineered this. Yeah, don't just measure and think you got it. Actually get the gate, lay it on the ground, get the hardware, lay it on the ground, space it all out, and then go with that. Because I was just like that. I was measuring and I had a number in my head. And Sergio goes, "No, we got this." And I watched him do it. And while they poured the hinge side one day, and they let it get super solid, and then they mounted the gate to it, and then they swung it over, and then they poured the next post like 2 days after. I can't remember exactly how many days, but and they were able to adjust it perfectly. I think that's how they did it. I trust him because he made that part perfect. The only thing that I would have done differently, if I could have thought ahead and had those sleeve protectors. I've seen fence posts when I've replaced fences where they were concreted in, and over time, the concrete somehow leaches the protectant and the oils and everything out of the post. It takes a while, but like 10 or 15 years down the road, the top of your post might look good all the way down to the ground, and then you pull it out of the ground and it looks all like it's been eaten away from the outside. And that's just somehow the chemicals in the concrete interact with the post chemicals and the post loses. So I've seen vinyl sleeves that completely keep the post from touching the concrete. I've seen metal. And the second thing that's cool about those sleeves would be if you had a post that started twisting, you could take out two panels, lay them down, and then you could just slide your fence post out. And I would still, at the top, I would have my sleeves stick out of the ground maybe 1.5 or 2 inches in case you hit it with a weed eater. But at the top, up high like that, I might put in a couple deck screws that are pressure treated rated, whatever that is, ACQ or CCA, whatever they're using in your neighborhood, just to keep the post from being able to go up or down. And then when you need to take it out, you back the screws out and then just work the post out of the ground and replace it with a new one. That would be the ultimate, but I didn't do that, and I think this fence is going to last a long time. The fence I used to have was those vertical boards that were on either side of a fence, and so from an angle you could look out through the fence, but from straight ahead it was privacy. And the downside to that kind of fence is any kind of hard wind pushes on your fence. And so we had sections that I was braced from the inside just to hold them up because they would just blow over. This design there's almost no wind resistance, as you can tell. And so that was, and the other thing is my dog can run out there and he can look up and down the street and not be distracted. So he knows if somebody's coming that he can get ready to start barking. So there's answers to your email. Now I'm going to talk about what I did here. I went to Columbia at Home Depot, and I see you don't have 2x4 cedar, so that's a pain. But you could use other wood, I suppose. Your design could get modified. You have 6x6 pressure treated for ground contact, Southern Yellow Pine. I used to use that when I framed in Houston, and Southern Yellow Pine is notorious for drying out and getting all squirrely. So I think I would buy the number that I need, and I would stack them on I'd put them in a room where I could heat the room, and then put little 1x2 strips in between them. So I'd have maybe 4 or 5 on the ground on top of dunnage, and then stack them and space them out where air can touch all 4 sides. So you're going to put some spacers vertically and horizontally, and then I would ratchet strap them in the ends, in the middle, and the other end, nice and tight. And then I would just blow warm air on them and just force them to dry out, but you're holding them in place where they can't twist. I would try that. I don't know if that even helps, because they're going to get wet in the rain and then they're going to dry naturally. So I don't know. But there's 6x6s at that store, and I just chose Home Depot because I don't know what your local lumber stores would be wherever you live. They have 4x6s, same thing. They look a little different color. I don't know. Maybe they're all. It doesn't even say what kind of wood it is, but so they got those there. These sleeves, they have sleeves. Look at this. This is some kind of metal sleeve. It looks like it looks like a huge downspout from a gutter system. But this is the only thing I would change, is I would use one of these. I would let it stick up just high enough that my weed eater hits that instead of hitting the post. And it would definitely protect the post for a longer time. So they're not that expensive, and that's a pretty cool thing. 30 inches if you go down that far. Otherwise, they sell at 60 inches is the other length. And they have them for the 4x6 too. So that's cool. And here's the gate that he ordered. This one right here. There it is. This is in green. We got black because everything else was black. Thought we'd, matchy matchy. And then here's the gate hardware. So what I was talking about was this part here bolts onto the end of the gate as it, oh, come on. There you go. It bolts onto the gate. As it swings shut, the round piece right here slides up. And what's nice is that you can open it either way. Slides up onto this little ramp and gets trapped between these 2 gravity pins. And then you can just put a padlock on here. And so we keep it locked because I don't want anybody just coming on up to the house for any reason. And my dog goes nuts. And then they, the whole, hey, your dog attacked me. No, I'm not having none of that. If you come into my property, you're going to have to bypass this lock, which means you're trespassing. And my dog has every right to scare you. And he's a good boy. So, so if you have the setup where it can go both ways, then this is the perfect locking mechanism. And I pulled my gate goes out really close to the street, as close as I could get it within the, like with the utilities and looking down the road and seeing where everybody else's was. But then where it comes back to my driveway, actually both driveways, I angled it way back because what I really wanted to do was be able to open this to the inside, drive my truck out, not have the nose sticking out in the road, and then be able to close the gate. So average full-size trucks, somewhere 22, 23 feet long. So I probably have 24 feet from the edge of the street to my gate. And that was just part of the design consideration. And the other thing I was going to say was, the posts that line up that come from the last angle turn and come back to the where the gate post is, those don't line up with each other. The one post farther out is offset, and so if you watch the video, you'll see Sergio was like, "Oh man, I'm sorry, we didn't get that straight," but it worked out perfectly to put in the man gate, absolutely perfectly. I had the UPS guy was handing me a package, and he and I talk all the time, and so I said, "Hey, what do you think of my man gate?" And he's looking around. He's like, "What are you talking about?" And I said, "I'm leaning on it." And he looked at it, and he still couldn't figure it out. And then he poked his head over, and he saw the latch assembly, and I opened it up, and it swung open. And that was the best part, was no one knows that there's a man gate there. It just looks like everything else. And so your eye just walks right past it, or looks right past it. Doesn't really walk past it. But so there are the answers to your questions. Stainless steel fasteners or Simpson 1.25" SDS screws. I like the 12-foot gate only because when we first bought this house, I think it had a 10-foot gate. And when we moved in, I rented a moving truck. And as I was pulling out, I started to turn, and my wife was at the street trying to get me to stop. And I was like, whatever. And I kept going. And because the back bumper of the truck is like 6 feet away from the back wheels of the truck, as you turn, that 6 feet swings out the opposite way of your turn. And I dented the gate, the existing old gate, really bad. So now I have an extra 2 feet to prevent that from happening. So I hope this video helps you out and you're able to make a good plan. I really like this fence. It was built during the expensive lumber time, so that was painful. And those little channels that come with the wild hog are super expensive for what you get. It's kind of crazy. I think when you buy it all the way around, it was like $70 or more. I can't remember the exact price. I just remember looking at it going, $26. What the? It was something. So maybe each one was a certain price. In my case, I had to cut. What did I cut? They fit one way, but they weren't designed to actually fit around the, what do I have? 3x6. I have 3x6 panels. And when you put those channels on there, they don't exactly overlap each other correctly. So that was a frustration that I had, was you have to decide, I think, which way, and then the other one's too long, so you just cut a little piece off on the tip and then hit it with some good spray paint. Stuff that sticks to aluminum. What else? Oh yeah, so the panels have that little vertical space on either side. That was so that I could go with a like 7'6" on center. Even 8 foot would have worked. But then the panel part is centered in each one, and the dog still can't get out. So it all works. And I think I'm going to do the same thing when I update the deck in the back, is get the 2 foot by 6 foot panels and build a 3 foot handrail and make it match, because it just has a nice clean look, and it holds up well. All right, this video is considered complete.